What's going on, people? Welcome into another episode of the Stay Weighed In show, presented to you by iBoxingHub in association with our partnership with D-Rock Clothing. Today, we may not have Ray, but I'll be honest, we've got the upgrade. We've got Ashanti back in the building. How are you, man?
I'm all good. You're too kind. I think it's the first time I'm on without Ray, so I'll try my best, but I don't think I'll be able to imitate him. But all you can do is try.
I don't think you'll imitate. I think you'll better him. I think you can better him. So we may need a replacement. But listen, it is the best card in boxing that I think I've seen in my generation coming up. And before we do preview it, I've got to talk about what happened over the weekend with Jack Catterall against his fight with Arnold Barbosa. For me, I'm just going to put it out there. He's just so unlucky. And it's sad. It is sad because of what he had won before it wasn't given to him. And then since then, it is that thing of I'm crawling back to the top, and you get that close and it just slips away potentially like that. Did you watch the fight? What's your thoughts on Jack Catterall and the performance and just him in general in terms of his career now?
Yeah, I definitely watched the fight. I thought it was a really good fight in terms of matchmaking. Two top-level guys. You're completely right about Jack Catterall. He should be an undisputed champion. I'm not going to pretend I know the numbers, but probably one of like 12 that Britain's ever produced. We really haven't had that many undisputed champions, particularly not in the four-belt era. And I think I read he's turning 32 in the summer. So, there's a chance he never becomes a world champion because he's got Sam Jones and Eddie Hearn in his corner. There's a good chance. He looks like he keeps himself fit. He looks like one of those kind of quiet gym rats, stays pretty fit, doesn't balloon up. So he should be able to last for quite, he should have a few more years left. But yeah, the way that judges can change your whole life. He's clearly doing well out of fighting, making decent money. But when you're an undisputed champion, you're really cashing checks. You could see a star from 135 wanting to come up going, let's fight in Vegas. Let's fight at Madison Square Garden. I'd love to become undisputed champion. And that's a belt. That's a tag that really you can sell. Gervonta Davis wants to come up, or Devin Haney, any of these stars, to be able to call yourself another weight division undisputed champion, and he may not. The balance to that is, and I don't want to be too rude about him, I find his style particularly boring. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, great family man, and it's a really effective style. If I were a boxer, I would swerve him, not because I'm scared or any of that stuff. You're just not going to get anything fun from the fight because back foot, evasive, smart, calm, cool, collected. It's not a fight I would ever tell a boxer if I were in their corner or managing to take, because it's very frustrating, and he's very difficult to fight. But I thought the Barbosa was superb. If I were to bet on the fight, I would put all of my money on Catterall, because I watched that Sean McComb fight, and I'll use the word, I think he robbed Sean McComb. I thought McComb won. Those fights where you almost can turn off because you're like, he's miles clear. Even with 2 rounds to go, you're like, he's like 8-2 up or 7, like it's over. Let me just watch something else. It was one of those fights. If you rewatch, that's my opinion on it. I thought McComb won at a canter, but got really unlucky. So I didn't see how Barbosa could turn it around, because another lefty southpaw who probably has even more skills and has fought at a higher level in Jack Catterall, I didn't see it. So happy to hold my hands up. Their game plan was fantastic. It was almost, he's in his hometown. We know Americans don't know what anyone's hometown is. So
London's your hometown.
It's like, Manchester. Yeah, Chorley to Manchester is the same place to them. They're going to know no different. The accents, they'll be like, yeah, these guys must all go to school together. So basically in his backyard to Barbosa, coming from LA. And it was like, he's at some point going to have to put the pressure on me, because he's in his hometown. Like, he can't just be as evasive and elusive as he always is. And went to his left all the time. And I thought he won. I had it 7-5, but not a clear 7-5, but I thought I know it was close, but it was
them
like
little bits enough to win a round. I understand exactly what you mean, because
it wasn't like Catchall could win. I didn't really see that. I could see a draw, but I was quite firm in a clear 7-5 to Barbosa. And yeah, it was good to see the judges go the right way, because when I heard it was split decision, I was like, I think we all know what's coming here.
We know where it could go. Yeah.
You can't really argue, because it won't be a robbery. It's just a close fight, and that's what they've seen and heard. So it was nice to see a fight really go fairly. Yeah.
Just quickly, you said something about Jack Catchall that I've kind of echoed as well. The style's effective. It's not always the most exciting. So do you think sometimes when you're looking at Jack, yes, he feels in control, but he could just do that bit more where even in them super close rounds where we can't really split, but Barbosa maybe did that little bit more. If Jack Catchall just puts his foot down a little bit, it's enough to then nick that specific round. But the other thing I want to ask is, and I know maybe we're looking a bit too much into it, is there a possibility where one loss turns into a bit of a slippery slope, and you could become that guy where people, let's test how we are at that particular weight when we're coming up? Or if there's a younger fighter that wants to test themselves, Jack Catchall becomes somewhat of that name to put to as a next fight.
I'll answer your second question first. I do think that can happen, but I will openly say, as boring as I find the style, I think that will be a terrible decision from matchmakers and boxing managers. I think he's still fantastic at what he does. I really do not think he should become a stepping stone. Maybe if you're American and you think, yeah, I'm just going to blast this guy out, but I like to pretend to be a matchmaker sometimes when I come on, and I would love to see him and Dalton Smith kind of.
That's what a lot of people said instantly after the election. Was like Dalton Smith, let's get that in.
Yorkshire versus Lancashire, I think it sells in Manchester or in Sheffield. I'd love to see that fight. I've got Adam Azim bias. I think Adam Azim would beat Jack Catchall, because I think the speed would be enough to overcome that kind of elusive back foot, leaning back, occasional catch you with the backhand. I think Adam could almost overwhelm him in those first 6 rounds and win 5 of the first 6. And then Jack's kind of like, oh, I might take over here, but I need to step on the gas. And if he does that, it might actually allow Adam to almost become a bit of a dangerous pot shotter, where he waits for him to come, he catches him with one good right hand that's flashy, and then he kind of muddles through the rest of the round, and everyone goes, well, nothing really happened. We'll give that to Adam. So, but yeah, I think Dalton Smith Catchall would be, and we have to say, it's one of the reasons I've always kind of understood where Shane McGuigan comes from with Adam Azim. I think Dalton Smith's 28.
27, 28.
Yeah, he's not a pup. So I know he's got that ranking, but I think, is it Martin and Puello? They fight either next month or within the next couple of months, and the winner of that, I think, is allowed a voluntary. So it's unlikely that Dalton will fight for the title until like December time or the early next year, this time next year. So he has time for at least 1, maybe 2. And I think Catchall gets him back to the top, takes that WBC #1 ranking, so he can again go, I'm back. Like, it's only 1 loss, really close loss. I deserve a world title. Again, I will have to add, if it's Martin versus Catchall, if I have a child at that point, I'm putting that fight on. They will sleep for a week. There is no amount of money you could pay me to watch that fight live. It would be genuinely like watching 2 high-level chess players who just nullify each other. Or in football, if a team just plays like 5 at the back, 3 defensive midfielders and 2 forwards pressing, I
get it.
Landed, it'd be awful. But yeah, and then obviously for Dalton, keeps him super sharp and keeps solidifying his place as probably the best fighter who's not a world champion. So yeah, I'd love that fight.
I'm just going to go to Trey. He's saying the same thing. I'd love to see Catchall versus Smith at the co-op. Obviously, our guy Andy's saying the same thing. That would be a solid fight. So shout out to everyone in the comments. But let's go into what we're here for. Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol 2. Now, I'm going to preference this. I do not believe it can live up to the first fight, because the first fight was so good that I put it genuinely in a category of its own for 2024. the occasion of Fury versus Usyk one was bigger because it's undisputed at world heavyweight, but the actual fight of the first one was the best fight of 2024 by a stretch for me. With that being said, what can Dmitry Bivol do to win the rematch?
I think be himself. I think I thought Beterbiev won, but
Yeah.
I completely see why people thought Bivol won. And if Bivol had won, then you'd be saying the opposite. When it's almost confirmation bias. If you'd have won, we'd go, you just need to be yourself again. So, of
Can
course,
I just interrupt just for a
fun.
second?
Of course.
I couldn't see how Bivol won, if you want me to be honest, because albeit some of the numbers were in his favor, fine. But when I was watching the fight, there was moments where Bivol will let loose. But for me, the ring generalship, the tempo of the fight, I genuinely felt Artur Beterbiev controlled it for the most part. And when that 8-4 scorecard came out, I wasn't shocked by it. I didn't look back and think, oh no, that's a robbery for that scorecard, because we talk about small margins in rounds that go to a fighter, and that's what it felt like. But I felt like Artur Beterbiev, for the most part, controlled the tempo of the fight as well.
I agree. I was just trying to be objective and kind of add balance, but that's my personal opinion. I think if similar-ish to Barbosa, Catterall, I had it like not a clear, but like a quite firm 7-5. I didn't think Bivol won in any way. I was pretty confident with Beterbiev, but I think he needs to be a bit more forceful when the time arises. He needs to go on the front foot and box, but then at times you do need to press because you lost the first fight and you do need to do something slightly different. I think why it's such a great fight is it's 2 top 10 pound for pounders, which is amazing, but also I think both fighters, and I love these kind of fights and rematches where both fighters have a legitimate claim to say, this is why I'll win, or, Bivol, I think, says, I'll do more of the same and I'll just, be a bit more forceful. There's probably only 2-3 punches around. He needs to land more in some of those close rounds to win them. So, but then I think Beterbiev would say, I came off, I think it was knee surgery. I think he had so he will say, I was fit, but there's fit and then there's almost match fit. Like in football, he hadn't had a fight, I don't think, since that terrible knee injury. So he clearly is going to feel better in himself because he's had the fight and another training camp. So he'll go, I won the last fight and I'll be even better than I was for the previous fight. So I think Bivol needs to be more authoritative with the jab, a bit more front foot pressure rather than just being himself. That's what I would say.
The only thing I will counter is and I think Bivol's downplaying Beterbiev's power personally, because I think he said it's not monster power, but we saw post-fight how swollen up we were. And look, even if you're blocking this man's punches, you're going to feel the pain through it. So I don't know how front foot he will want to be, but I do understand your point in the sense that even though you're not necessarily always on the front foot, you've just got to highlight it, that in the middle of that ring, it's you that is technically controlling the tempo, even if there is pain behind it. And I think that, for me, is going to be a big deciding point again. When I look at Beterbiev, and this is going to sound a little bit controversial because I'm worried about judges. I'm not going to sit here and not say that. I think he may have to do a little bit more to get a more resounding victory, or in terms of the judges' scorecard, whereas Bivol can replicate what he did last fight, and they may turn around and say, look, we gave it one way, we can swing it the other way, and we're not going to get that Eddie Hearn complaining afterwards. So that is a little bit of a worry. But I look and I think there is probably a little bit more for Beterbiev to go. I think there's a little bit more, in my opinion, whereas I think Dmitry Bivol fought the best fight he could do, and he's going to downplay this power, but I genuinely feel that affected him going forward as well, in terms of the rematch as well.
You basically just had a more succinct answer than I did. I think you answered what I was trying to say just in a far better way. So I've got to give you props for that. But you're completely correct. I think Beterbiev's got that freaky power. You know, that power that if he like slapped you open hand, it would really hurt. Like,
It's gonna cut you. It's gonna cut you from a slap. Yes.
He touched his child. I think he's got, you know, almost that bear power, that like proper, just like heavy, big hands of like, it feels like a plate has hit you. And I think it's that touch power. Even if he's, Canelo did it, didn't he, to Callum Smith, I think, just punched him on the upper arm. And Callum said after like 8 rounds, he couldn't feel his arm because he'd just almost deaded it for a while. I think that Beterbiev has that, and it is the risk reward. If Bivol tries to be more assertive on the front foot, he's in the lion's den, as they say, and that is not a place where you want to be when a cuffing shot hurts you and might leave you a bit dazed for a round, or might open the body up. So it's a really difficult task because you know what you're going into. And if I may, I'd say that that's like, it may mirror a little bit of the Daniel Dubois fight with Parker. We know Parker's got very good head movement and is technically a good fighter. But if he tries to use that head and get close to Daniel Dubois, enjoy having that like 6'5" monster, even as I say, just kind of hand up, just kind of, yeah, because it's going to hurt. Daniel Dubois clearly really, really punches. It's what he's always done.
He's dynamite for a reason.
Again, I think he was probably nine years old, probably learned how to punch in a gym and was just like sparking 12-year-olds. And people were like, what, how's this happened? And his dad was like, he's God gifted. A real big diversion, but I remember it. David Hay told a story that one of his party tricks when his parents used to have parties was he used to punch grown men on the hands at like 6 years old, and their hands would be reddened and they would just go. Apparently he just came out of the womb just like punching hard, like just really, really naturally, not even really being taught. And he used to punch grown men on the hand and they would feel it and not feel a 6-year-old and laugh. It'd be like, okay, cool. So yeah.
The legacy for both guys. I just want to ask that before we touch on the rest of the card as well. For Dimitri Bivol, I feel like it is a must win to be able to put yourself somewhat on par at 175. Can I say this with a bit that Artur Beterbiev is just playing with house money? Win, lose, or draw, he got the first one. Arguably the one that matters a little bit more. So, like, for legacy-wise, what does a win and a loss do for each fighter?
I firstly want to say I agree on your point about Beterbiev. I think he's 38, 39. I believe an Olympian. Yeah, done everything. Undisputed champion. I think you are. I think he's playing with house money because he never would, but he probably could play on the injury and being nearly 40. You know, it's just like, I won the first fight and maybe I'm nearly at the end of my but with how big the Saudi cards are, that first one was so big and so much in the public consciousness that he's done what if he loses, it's like, 18-1 or whatever his record will be, but I was an undisputed champion, and I wiped most people out. So yeah, I'm all good. What it will mean for both legacies, if Beterbiev wins, I put him closest to Usyk. That's how highly I would rank his legacy in terms of the history, because he's a great boxer, and anyone that comes into contact with him, they don't leave the same way. I don't believe so.
I think the ultimate icing on the cake for Artur Beterbiev is, and I don't expect this to happen, if he knocked out Dimitri Bivol. That would just be like, we know it's February. But has he potentially made a claim for pound #1 by doing that type of conversation with it? Carry on.
Undoubtedly. The great thing about pound for pound, because it's mythical, is it does change.
Yes.
It always changes fight by fight. If anyone that's in the consensus top 5, Inoue, Canelo, Bivol, Beterbiev, Usyk, wins like in a really impressive fashion against another great opponent, you go, he's definitely top #1, and then someone else fights 2 months later and you go, they're back to being #1. But you beat Bivol, who's beaten Canelo, Canelo's probably the greatest of his generation, I think. I think it'd be quite fair to say that. And definitely the most popular, the biggest, the most well known, and beats him twice, then yeah, you're talking, like I say, Usyk levels. I think you're talking about one of the better, maybe greatest cruiserweights of all time. Oh, sorry, no, 175 is
Yeah.
light heavies. I think you're putting him so, and he's definitely number one pound for pound. The thing I will say, I think he retires. I think he does. I think there's almost a tacit agreement with all the promoters and with everyone that if Beterbiev wins, he's nearly 40. They've been great fights, great fighters, but they're holding up the belts. I think they get. I think they kind of either retires or he gives 3 of them up, because we know that there are some younger guys, Callum Smith, Buatsi, Yard, or Lyndon Arthur, but there's a load of good fighters behind them that are kind of waiting out their time, and it's wonderful to see, because you see it with those really elite fighters where if you're 25 and Canelo, like he is now, is the undisputed or 3 belt champion, you kind of go, yeah, I'm just going to fight another top 10 contender and reassess my options in 6 months' time, and no one says anything. But same as Gervonta Davis, if you're in his division, you go, yeah, no, I've always wanted to fight in my hometown. So it'd be great to have a homecoming in my hometown. Let me get that out of the way. I think I'm having a child as well, so I'll have my child and see them for 3 months, and then in 9 months we'll see how everything goes. And then as soon as you hear Gervonta's going up or division or has other plans, it's like, oh, I think I'm number 2 in the division. Yeah, I'd quite like to take my mandatory spot, thanks. And I think that's what happens. And then for Bivol, his legacy is already set. He beat Canelo, but it just adds to the luster, doesn't it? But I don't think he'll be as impactful if he does win. I think matchmaking again. I think Canelo fights him next if he wins. I think Canelo comes up
in 26. You think Canelo would fight him in 26?
Yeah, maybe even December.
No, they've got the 2 dates, haven't they? He's got this year. He's doing the Mexican dates.
So
one in Riyadh
in May, early May, and then
he's got Crawford in September. But it'd be 26. I've said that because there's a name that obviously everyone talks with Canelo, but he is at 175. So I'll just quickly get your thoughts, and that's Benavidez. And where do you think he potentially fits in the light heavyweight scene? And do you think he's looking at world title opportunities at 175, or do you think he would look at 168 and Canelo if that opportunity came?
I think he takes the Canelo bag, if so, okay. Which I'm completely fine with, because these boxers make good money, and then there's Canelo money, and even B-side Canelo money is like pay for my parents' house, buy myself a mansion and 4 Ferraris. It's crazy money. So yeah, I think he would take the Canelo option, but I don't think it'll be there. I think he will fight the winner or
be elevated.
Yeah, but I think he's the next one. As much as I'm biased towards all the Brits and I love them, I think Benavidez is the number 3 in the weight class after Beterbiev and Bivol. So kind of almost a fake one, because they're kind of getting on and they won't be around forever. I think he's the next cab off the rank. And I think he'll be the one scaring other fighters in a few years' time, and then going kind of making the joke about, I'll take a bit of time off and fight someone else. So yeah, I think he's the next one.
For the first time, I want to say we've got a not a regular world title, a genuine world title fight that's not topping the bill. So that just kind of shows, 1, how stacked this card is, but 2, how big the main event is. Dubois Parker, and do you know what? It just felt like this was a fight that probably wasn't written to happen, but it's come about. Daniel Dubois coming off the annihilation of Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, his wins against Zhang and Deontay Wilder. I'm going to say this, and this is going to sound a bit controversial, but allow me to see if it's land. When the fight was announced, I was on board with the idea, very tricky fight for Daniel Dubois, etc. As it's materialized a bit more, I'll be very honest, if we get any element of what we saw against Anthony Joshua, in terms of that Daniel Dubois, Parker simply doesn't hang with him, and I think it ends super quickly. Now, I'm not saying that we are going to get it. I'm not saying that what the wins are for Joseph Parker are not great. I'm just saying if you really strip it back, it's a Deontay Wilder that's over the hill. It's the Zhile Zhang who's starting off the card, who probably wasn't meant to be where he was anyway, but he managed to get a couple of wins and we took notice of him. And I just think we're underappreciating what Daniel Dubois is, if I'm very honest with you. And I think it can be so it can be a lot more easier work than people are believing it can be. Now watch it go 12 rounds and we're going to be like it's going to be a split decision. But I do genuinely think it may well be easier work than people think it is.
Wow, that is it's not really controversial, but I love those opinions
Okay.
that are slightly different to the norm. I again will admit my British bias, but also Daniel Dubois' family are from Grenada, same as mine. So I've been a big fan of him. I remember watching him when he was about 20. I think coming out to like I've Got the Power on a Frank Warren show years ago. So I've always kind of followed his career, and I'm a bit nervous. I'm not where you are. I think I actually agree. I think a razor sharp Daniel Dubois that we've seen in the last couple of fights with the added confidence and really knows who he is. You can tell he's growing into becoming a real kind of young man and knows his power at the highest level, not against guys he should be knocking out. But if he does take his eye off the ball in any way, I think Parker's good enough to give him a really, really difficult night. But I don't think Don Charles will let that happen. I really believe in Don Charles. I'm not going to pretend I'm a boxing trainer and talk about the technicalities of how he coaches and what he's going to do. I'm talking about the mindset. I've listened to interviews with Daniel's father and also Don Charles over the years, and apparently one of the reasons it's working so well is Don is basically like Daniel's father in that an old black man of a similar age to his dad. We know how kind of people from the Caribbean community, we understand how we treat our elders, and I think that it's just working perfectly. When he tells Daniel to do something, Daniel has full belief and almost is able to look over to his dad, and his dad is probably nodding, going, "This is what you should do." And Don's very good with the big guys. We know that with heavyweights. So I think it's the perfect partnership, and Don Charles is getting his flowers that he's deserved for years, and I just don't see him letting Daniel take his eye off the ball, because this is too big. Because if Daniel keeps destroying people and keeps fighting in Saudi, the money this man is going to make in the next 4 years is going to be ridiculous. So, and there's the Usyk fight potentially for the win. Well, yeah, for the winner. Usyk's spoken about it, and I think Daniel wants revenge. So I hope you're right, but I don't think. I think it's going to be quite a close fight. I think Parker will win rounds. I'm hoping that Dubois' power, again, Parker's going to have to come to him at some point, and could be really, really dangerous for him. And with Daniel, once you get hit, you stay hit. If he catches you on the chin, I'm not saying he knocks you out, but it stuns you and you feel it. And I think with the size advantage, the power advantage, I'd say he's got a better jab as well, because when he really flicks that jab out, it's hard to get past a big guy, 6'5", 6'6", and athletic. I think that's kind of the keys to victory is basic boxing. Keep him on the end of the jab, make him do a lot to try and get inside, hit him with the backhand when he does get close, and then tie him up if you need to and turn him around, spin him around. So I'm hoping you're right. That's my long-winded way of saying I'm praying.
I will say this, as much as I've done that prediction, that there is always that feeling in the background. Oh, Daniel's always susceptible to taking a knee, to this and that, them little things. Do you think, I think a lot of people looked at the AJ fan like, oh, new Daniel Dubois come. If he does what he does against Parker the same way against AJ, it's kind of that thing of letting go of your demons, and it's like, Daniel Dubois, I am here. I'm not just Daniel Dubois. I am Daniel Dubois, a genuine heavyweight champion. I am that guy. Like, outside of Usyk, I am number 2 or number 1B, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the demons are gone personally, and I think my bias will show. I defended him after the Joyce one. I mean, I think he posted the scans. He could have, lost his eyesight. It was. I don't think by definition, he quit. But I think he stopped fighting because he couldn't see and was worried about the ramifications. And I understand boxing's modern day gladiators, but I didn't see it as a super negative because I just thought it was almost panic in my eyes. It was, this has never happened to me before. I'm really worried that it could get so much worse. And I think he made the right decision clearly, and I never really held it against him. And with Usyk, it was a good shot. I think his gas tank might have started to empty a bit, but I think some boxers have this. It's not actually physical, it's mental. I think some boxers get more tired in their minds than they, do you know what I mean? Like it's
100%.
Start working and it's like, oh, it's round 8 and you think you're more tired, but it's not. It's almost your mind controlling your body. It's not that your body can't go on, it's the mind controlling.
That's right. Like, that's why I said I always appreciate Derek Chisora. Like his gas tank, when you watch him, it's like he's huffing, the mouth is open, and he's like, there's no way he's got 12 rounds. And then before you know it, he's just got that second win and he's super stronger and stuff. And it's like, I don't know how he's done it, but no, I do understand exactly what you mean. I do want to go onto a fight, probably towards the lower end of the card. One that's probably more relatable to you is Buatsi and Smith. We've talked about Buatsi quite a bit. You need to get in for the world title shots. You can't give up certain opportunities now. With these Riyadh season cards, and what Turki Al-Sheikh tends to do is they'll give you the opportunity. If you win, we're going to elevate you further on the cards. Does this kind of feel like a do or die type of fight for him?
I wouldn't go quite that far, but I understand the statement. I think, again, 31. I think he's about 31. So if he did lose to Callum Smith, and it was quite a good fight, a close fight, even if he got dropped late and he lost. Again, similar to Jack Catterall, he spends a year coming back, 2 pretty decent fights. He's an Olympian. He's with boxer. He's got a pretty big name. I think he can get back up to top 5 in his in the WBC or the WBA quite quickly. Like I say, 2 fights, but it's really, really important. I said all of that to say this. It's super important because it's almost been his time's coming for 5 years, and we've all wanted him to be a world champion, and it hasn't happened yet. But in my opinion, this is now in a world title fight because we know what's going on at the top of the card. These aren't, Bivol and Beterbiev aren't normal world champions. They are superstars. They are extraordinary fighters. And so if in any normal weight division, this would be a world title fight. You know, Callum Smith's been a 168-pound champion and is a really great fighter. And I think that, again, the matchmaking is unbelievable because I think Callum Smith's been massively underrated in this fight. I've seen the betting odds, and Buatsi is a heavy favourite. I think he's 1-2 with the bookies. He's like heavily odds on, and I think Buatsi's going to win, but I don't see it being him being the heavy favourite. I think it's super close because Callum Smith is massive. He's like 6'4", and he's got a serious hook.
I'll say this: he's got arguably, no, not even arguably, the quality of opponents he's fought are significantly better. You've got Beterbiev, you've got Canelo Alvarez. You have pound for pound way better names on your resume. Whether you lost to them or not is beside the point. You've been in with the toughest of competitions. So I do agree with you on that side of things as well. In terms of
a lot of miles on the clock. Yeah. That's why I don't understand why the general consensus or the bookies are like this, because he's had a few tough fights, but who hasn't had a tough fight with Beterbiev? And I don't think it's, he didn't get, his nose broken, his cheekbone broken. He just got, he lost pretty convincingly, but I don't think he's past it. I think he's 34, but again, a fit 34, a kid who grew up in gyms, all his brothers, we know what the Smith family legacy is. So I think it's going to be a really great fight. And again, both camps can say, Buatsi can say, I'm on a roll. Look what I did to Willie Hutchinson. I'm younger, I'm fitter, I'm fresher. I'm going to catch him coming in with kind of my short hooks, and I'm going to really, I'm going to put a beating on him. And then Callum Smith just goes, yeah, look at my resume. Look who I've fought. Look who I've beaten. I just need to be me. And any, like the old version of me, i.e. Callum Smith, beats Buatsi. Buatsi's never shown anything to anyone really. So I love it. All British fight. I think it's just spectacular, and the fact it's going to be second up is wild.
So this was what I was going to say, and I'm not going to be hypocritical, but I might be a bit. So we push this idea that it is the best card that we see, which will arguably mean there'll be certain level of fights that you're looking at like that would headline an arena in London or that would headline whatever. As a fighter, I also understand being on that card and what that means. But being that it's pay-per-view, and again, I say Buatsi's got his following, I say Callum Smith's got his following. Is it just one of them things where you take maybe a little bit of step back and think maybe I could have headlined a card yourself rather than being so low on the undercard where it's not going to have a lot of people initially tuning in, if that makes sense, and being behind a pay-per-view paywall, as well. So is there sometimes that allure of money that misses a trick for you to get known more by the more general public from people?
Maybe, but I truly believe the money talks, and they're both being paid an absolute fortune. And if I'm honest, I'll defend Eddie Hearn in this light. 4 or 5 years ago, or when Eddie was with Sky, this would have been a Sky Sports pay-per-view. So I think so. This context of if they were now, but it was 5 years ago, the stage they're at in their careers. Callum being an ex-world champion, fought Canelo, fought Beterbiev, Buatsi being an Olympian, kind of always. He was pushed to the forefront, wasn't he? Alongside Lawrence Coley, he was a big name. He signed with AJ. He was pushed as that, and I think with a half decent undercard, this is O2 sellout plus. I mean, I think I was at the fight when he fought. Who did he fight? Was it Craig Rich? No, Dan Aziz.
Yeah,
that was rammed. That was rammed, and and Callum Smith's, again, not trying to upset anyone, a much bigger name than Dan Aziz, a really big name, and it sold out the O2. It had been pay-per-view. So, and the second thing I'll say is I think that there is a lot of talking going on behind the scenes that's not just with money. I do think there's that, not even wink-wink, nudge-nudge, it's just conversations amongst Turkey, promoters, managers. You win this fight, this is what's there. I think there's a clear pathway, and that's part of the reason they're on the show. Money really is a big driver, but I think it's also, who's headlining. These are the likely outcomes. If Beterbiev wins, this is likely you're next in line. So you kind of stay with the family, you stay on our cards, and we'll make sure that as long as you're fit and healthy in 4 to 6 months, you're going to be fighting for a world title. That's what I would imagine.
Do you know what? I'm actually glad you said that, because the next fight I want to talk about before we just wrap up is basically one of them fighters who, whilst fighting under Riyadh's season, becoming an ambassador, his name is at a point where what he's doing right now in terms of going for that world title is the definition of Frank Warren just engineering the perfect career right now. Hamza Shiraz, Carlos Adames, and it's funny because when you look at this fight, they were like, people like, oh, he didn't fight Yanibek. And then some people are like, yeah, but he's also not fought Lara. So he's fought somewhere in the middle, and some people are saying arguably he's fought the hardest challenger for the belts at 160. Can I just get your view, one, on the fight, but also, like you said, the growth of fighters under Riyadh's season, and when you look at Hamza and how he has grown and arguably become a staple of the Riyadh season cards?
I think it's fair to say there are probably 6 to 8 fighters who they were well known beforehand, but have almost built their names off the back of Riyadh season. 2 that come to mind certainly are Zhile Zhang and Ajit Kabayel. They've really elevated themselves. And Hamza is probably number 1 on that list. I mean, Frank has managed him so well. I believe it was the Bradley Skeet fight a few years ago.
Tricky one, yes, where he hit him when he was down and stuff. Yeah,
I thought he was getting soundly beaten, and I just thought, good fighter, maybe a little bit of hype from the Frank Warren machine, good for him. Wasn't sure he was going to go very far, especially when that Skeet rematch didn't happen. But he's now a beast. Going to America, And Riyadh season could not have worked any better for him. He speaks well. He's, obviously he's a Muslim as well. And now he's a Riyadh season ambassador. It feels like everything's just kind of flowing for him and coming at the right time. And he's obviously making serious money for these fights. And
listen, he lives permanently out. When you live permanently out in Dubai and you train out of LA, you make good money.
and this isn't even his really good money. He's kind of starting to earn. If he keeps winning, like I said, for Daniel Dubois, the next 5 years are going to be golden for Hamza Shiraz. He's going to be making silly money. So that's great for him. I have to slightly disagree. I'm not saying I've watched every Adames fight, but I think that Janibek is, I think he's the number one at the division. So I think he would be the hardest fight. But again, I don't think a lot of fighters want to fight Hamza Shiraz. I'm, again, not calling people ducking, because people are allowed to guide their careers how they want to. Janibek is a unified world champion. So if he wants to fight someone else, fine, guide your career how you want to. But I think if someone said, oh yeah, you can defend against Hamza Shiraz for £1 million, or you can defend against someone else for 800,000, I think there's a lot of fighters out there and a lot of champions that are thinking, 800 grand's pretty good, and I'll get quite a lot in my next fight when I win. He's 6'4". You don't want to be on the end of that jab or the hooks that come in. He's a big problem. But I thought he was, again, a huge favourite. But I've read from quite a few people that think that Adames is a real live dog in this fight. Obviously he is the world champion, but it's not going to be just a procession for Hamza Shiraz. People are saying that Adames is a top level fighter. So looking forward to seeing it. But I hope Shiraz wins, because I just think, if he does, his future is so golden, and it'd be amazing for him and his family.
I kind of see it not to the same level, but when he fought Amar Williams, that yes, it was a systematical breakdown that took to the 11th round to finish. It wasn't like Tyler Denny where it was done, blink and you finish. It wasn't like Liam Williams, blink and you finish type of thing. So I do expect a bit of difficulty, as you would do when you are going up the ranks, and especially here fighting for a world title. The one thing I will say is that you mentioned about confidence. I think what I appreciate is the fact that when he says what he says about, look, if I don't win a world champion now or a world title now, or don't fight for one, then what am I really doing? There's a understanding of where he naturally is in his career, and a confidence that can be appreciated, because he is genuinely a knockout machine. If we're gonna put it there, he's up there in terms of that, and I think he's riding maybe 14 or 15 wins in a row with knockouts. So it comes with the territory of, I can be that confident because of that reason. I am gonna back Hamza. I have also made out a very bold call that I still back to this day, which is in 2026, if the chips align and the money is sensational, which it will be, one of them two Canelo Alvarez Riyadh season fights goes to Hamza Shiraz at 168. I said it at the start of the year. I still back myself with that feeling as well. And if I can be there for a February one.
I hadn't thought about that, but I think that's a great shout from you. I think it's almost like two worlds colliding, and it aligns so well that we know Hamza's 6'4". He's going to go up at some point. I know he's got a slight build, but those extra 8 pounds will really do him good when you're that tall. So he'll go up at some point. He'll likely be a world champion. And with that Frank Warren Riyadh season money, and we know Canelo will fight anyone for the most money. And again, interesting fight, because similar-ish dimensions to the Callum Smith fight. Will Canelo be able to get inside, being slightly older, being probably 35, 36 at the time? Or is this Hamza's real coming out party, and now he's also another one that's beating Canelo and is almost the kind of the talk of Riyadh? Because Turkey Al-Sheikh, he won, would be straight in the ring. Like, it would, he's the king. He's the king of Riyadh, almost in a boxing sense. If he beats Canelo at 28, 29, he's the man. And I love that shout, and I could see it happening, because he keeps winning, and he's at that point a unified world champion, and then moves up. He's going to have serious momentum, a big name. I
will say that I think, depending, again, it is one of the things where the chips have to fall. So you have to win this weekend. I do then think I don't look at Yanibek. I look at Laura probably because okay, the ease of making a Laura fight for unification is there. I don't know what Laura's current path is, so I couldn't really fully comment on it. But the ease of doing that in the October, November, whatever they are for the Riyadh season cards is there, and then we see where everything falls, whether it's the February card or whatever the other date is. But I genuinely believe unless Yanibek's like right, I'm up, let's do undisputed. I think there is a natural progression to 168, and I would love to see that genuinely. And I'll be very openly say the reason I can put that is because he is Pakistani, he is British. He's to see someone like that fight Canelo Alvarez, and as much as I love Amir Khan, and he was actually winning the fight until he got knocked out, in my opinion. This would feel like a somewhat 50-50-ish level fight for me with Hamza and Canelo Alvarez right now or in 2026.
I don't want to offend anyone, put my foot in it, but certainly him being Pakistani and being a Muslim is a massive part of it. I think if you were to look at football as well, there is a reason why the Saudis targeted a lot of the most well-known Muslim footballers in the world, because it's almost like a homecoming. I think I'm right in saying that when someone who perhaps was Christian beforehand, they call it reverting to Islam because there's the belief that everyone is a Muslim. They almost haven't been awoken to it. So that's why Karim Benzema, that's why the Saudis are chasing Mohamed Salah, because they want to have the biggest names, Muslim footballers in the world, playing in a Muslim country, in a country that's ruled by people that are Muslim. It makes complete sense. It's great marketing, but it's also just, I think there's a powerful religious message there. I think Sadio Mane is a Muslim as well, if I'm right.
Yeah. Sadio Mane, genuinely, I think when he was in Liverpool, they used to say Sadio Mane was arguably one of the most humble Muslims out there. Like, you could not tell that it was Sadio Mane, the footballer. It was just Sadio Mane, the Muslim in mosque. So there was a lot of humbleness around Sadio Mane as well.
You hear the same stories about N'Golo Kante. I'm sure you've heard them of. I think he went to mosque one time and then met two young guys and
came to the house. Yep.
And they just like normal guys, not rich guys. They were just like, do you want to play FIFA? And again, it's the sitting. That's why Kante's over there. And I think I'm fair in saying if Hamza Shiraz was called Harry Smith and was Anglo-Saxon, British, but also is he from Ilford or from East London?
Ilford. I believe it's Ilford.
The connection with Turkey and I think they call it Seller, or the Saudi, the Riyadh season people, it wouldn't be quite as strong, and that is completely fine, because part of Riyadh season is to put Riyadh on the map and that part of the world, and to have a Muslim boxer who is superb as well, but also can be a spokesperson for your religion and things like that. It's a perfect marriage. It's not fake. If he was terrible at boxing and he kept getting all the big fights, you'd be like, cool. We kind of see what's going on here, but he keeps sparking people out, and he's a great ambassador. He talks really, really well and seems to live the life and is very humble. It's perfect, and that's another reason I see the confluence with Canelo, probably arguably the biggest star in boxing and almost the Riyadh season star colliding. It'd make for good TV.
Just quickly run through. I've got a comment from Trey here as well, and I don't really want to go too much into fight. Shakur's debut with Riyadh season would be interesting. First fight under the match umbrella. What's your feelings towards Shakur?
I almost think he's too good at boxing for his own good. I used to think the same about Devin Haney. I think maybe Devin stars slightly on the wane, but they're just so tricky, and no one really wants to fight them, and that's why he's fighting Floyd Schofield. From what I hear, Floyd Schofield, good young fighter, and good for him for taking the opportunity again. Money, opportunity. If you beat Shakur, the world's your oyster. But I think this is probably the one fight where pretty heavy favourite, and it's a very nice fight card.
Does he need a finish?
To break it would be that fight, if I'm honest.
Does he need a finish in this one? Does he need to finish Floyd Schofield?
he does to again be a Riyadh season star, to be a matchroom star, and for me it needs to be a proper knockout, not almost
the ref coming in because of a flurry of them punches type
and
of
also
thing.
it can't. For me, it won't be great if it's just I've bamboozled and outboxed someone and I've almost broken their spirit, and it's kind of like we're 9 fight rounds in. Should we just? He needs to see that he's hurt and then want to step on the gas and start breaking him down and almost being out of his shell, because he is again a defensive master, and he's a fantastic boxer. But to become a star, who did we just speak about? Who have we just been speaking about for 5 minutes? Hamza Shiraz is a star for all the other reasons, but also because he's knocking people out and doing things to fight. You know, Tyler Denny's not he's not a world-class fighter, but he'd been on a great run and was European champion, and he basically didn't let him get his robe off. He just went in and just went bang, it's over. He's been doing that to fighters. Riyadh season is attracting a lot of casual fans because they're getting the heavyweights and they're getting superstars. Part of being on the undercard is selling yourself, and it can't just be, oh, I'm so superb at boxing, look at me make someone miss for 5 minutes. It's got to be, I also, really put the hurt on people, because that's what the average guy who's watched rugby and football for the day and it's now 9:30 and has had a few pints maybe down the pub, that's what he wants to see. He's not going to go, oh, you seen the way he spins?
So technical. Technical.
Seriously, guys, stop what you're doing. Shakur's putting on a masterclass here. It's supreme. He's not being. It needs to be. Oh, I haven't really heard of that guy, Shakur, but that right hand really, really stunned him.
I feel like for boxing fans, like the proper boxing fans as well, it's like we just need you to have that one fight. Everyone knows what the fight is. Let's just find a way to do it. And if Shakur puts on this performance and Gervonta in March doesn't as much do what Gervonta Davis does, there's an avenue there where you can start speaking a little bit if you want to, but you've got to show out. Just going to go through this quick comment before we just run off the final 2 fights. I have a strong feeling that Bivol will win this one. After watching Beterbiev 9 times, Beterbiev versus Bivol 9 times, can't change my mind on Bivol winning. For me, I'm going to be honest, if I watch that 9 times, I'm straight into the Beterbiev money bank. Like, it would completely sway me the other way. But quickly run through, you got Virgil Ortiz and Israel Madrimov as well. That feels like, and I'm going to sound horrible, it feels like a fight where it's just slid in there. It's got its own value to it. But the same way you talked about Shakur, I feel like for boxing fans, because of what Shakur brings in terms of social media and just a little bit more presence, this feels like that fight that will be fun to watch, but also could be that fight that someone just disappears and maybe gets the takeaway type of thing. And that's just because of how stacked this card is.
Yeah, it's probably second on the list. I have no clue what's going to happen. I know Virgil Ortiz is a great pressure front foot fighter, and he's quite young, but he's had his health issues. And Madrimov is a superb boxer and did really well against Crawford. I can see 12 rounds of utter skill and class from Madrimov, and then I can see Ortiz Jr. getting into him and it getting pretty hot in the kitchen for Madrimov, and that kind of style gets knocked for 6, and Virgil makes it his fight. So I really have no clue, but I'd imagine for a lot of British fans, that's probably the one where
you get the takeaway.
You call your girlfriend, you get a takeaway. You get non-alcoholic or alcoholic beverages, whichever is your choice. But I just think it's because it's too, I might sound like a xenophobe, too foreign guys for Brits.
No, you're right. I do get that as well.
It was Becky? I think it was Beck.
It just feels like it would fit the American fan base because you've got the Virgil Ortiz side of things. But outside of that, I do get it. And I know we've been running quickly. The opener, I believe, is Zhang versus Cabaya. Very fun opening fight. The loser, I feel like, will just semi-fade away. The winner, and I've said this, I think I said it to Ray, I'm assuming he's going to be there, but even if he's not, because AJ doesn't have a plan right now, it feels. Call him out. Why not? what have you? This would probably be your opportunity to get an Anthony Joshua fight because Joshua's in limbo. We're waiting on time. We don't know what's. If you win and you win in successive fashion, do it. Give yourself the call out. AJ pops by later on, which we expect him most likely will. They're gonna question him on that. Take your chance if you get a big bang knockout and call the man out for me personally.
Completely concur. Can I make my fight prediction, which is I do think Big Bang knocks him out, and I think you should be his manager or promoter. I think Big Bang should do that because, again, believe I'm right in saying 2008 Olympian. I think Zhilei Zhang was an Olympian, and again, matchmaking, like to talk it into existence. Him fighting AJ at the Bird's Nest, I believe it's called. It's like one of the biggest stadia in the world, in Beijing. Would be, you could be talking about 800 million people watching that fight, like a billion people. And again, if it's in association with Riyadh season, the money could be, that there's got to be some Chinese billionaires out there that like boxing, they're like, oh, okay, you're getting offered 30 million quid for fighting someone else. We'll give you 60 if you come to Beijing, do a PR tour and have the fight. So you're right. I think this is it because he's about 40, 41.
Yeah, 40 as well, yeah.
So he's
cash out.
He's getting to the end, and it's the first thing I would be doing. I'd be going, AJ, where are you? AJ, where are you? But Deontay couldn't take it. Hadjit can't take it. No one can take it. AJ, let's go. But then I want to end on, this is all fun to speak about. I think he's fighting Tyson Fury. I think it's a fait accompli. I think this retirement is fake to get more zeros out of someone, which is fine. I can't see how they don't fight. Like you say, AJ doesn't have a plan. Fury doesn't have a specific plan. I just think now is the time. It's set up for them, September, December, whenever, to fight, whether that's in Wembley, at Wembley or in Riyadh. That's my personal opinion, but I may be completely wrong. But that doesn't stop Zhilei if he wins from making.
Well, I did say this. I thought AJ would fight once this year. If it was going to be just Tyson Fury, it would only be once this year. If that doesn't materialize, I don't know if you can get two fights in still. I know it sounds weird because we're just in February. I don't know how you fit two credible fights for Anthony Joshua without not involving a Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury in 2025, because the world title avenue is not really there now. And it's just a case of, okay, let's just cross out the T's and all that stuff and get some of the names that we haven't got and get their money fights in. But I will say this, I'm actually genuinely excited from card to card. And we used to say this about UFC, like they stack the cards. I think the momentum the boxing has had in 2024, even leading into it, is ahead of the UFC. And I think UFC fans could say that as well. But yeah, no, I do genuinely hope that the card lives up to what it is on paper set out as well.
Oh, I think it will do, because just quickly, if we're saying bottom of the card, I don't think Zhang has a gas tank to go more than 8. So
that's the good bit about it.
After 6, he'll have to start throwing real big bombs and just selling out if Caballero's getting to him, or he hasn't been deterred. So that fight, Madrimov and Ortiz Jr., as I say, madness. Buatsi and Callum Smith. Callum, I think, a little bit susceptible. So I can see a knockout at some point, or a knockdown. I can see big bombs being thrown in that fight. Who else is there?
Hamza and Adames.
Yeah, just a super high level fight. And I think Hamza's almost Teflon right now because of all of the things we spoke about. Even if he won on points, he'll be a world champion. So
can I just say something? And again, this is not me marketing, but if Hamza Shiraz becomes world champion, bearing in mind we are about 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, a week away from Ramadan, do some kind of tour, do a charity tour type of thing in the UK. And I promise you, if he comes with a world title, whatever charities you want to do it with, it will sell out. Like, do these meet and greets, do whatever. People will come pay their money to speak to this guy, take a picture with him, and it's for charity. I'm just putting that out there to any Muslim charities. If he becomes world champion, do that, because it will work.
Can I ask just quickly? I know we're about
Yeah.
to wrap up, and I don't expect you to speak for the British Muslim community, but how well thought of is he, whether by your friends or like, is he becoming that star? If you see what I mean, that people
I do get
in the Muslim community, I'd ask the similar question for Adam Azim. Is it a similar level, or is he quite a bit ahead of Adam? From
There's
your
still a bit. There's still a bit. There is still a bit. I will not lie, but I think having that heavyweight, that belt strap on you, just does something else. I think if he can get that on Saturday, I think a lot more people will stand up. Again, I've said it before. The reason why it may not hit personally for a lot of people, because I've got friends who are not probably the biggest of boxing fans. The difference was always Amir Khan was a local to a point. So up north, we traveled just anywhere. So there was always that element of connection. And I'm not saying that's not there with Hamza. I think more for the first time. I can't speak on it, but I feel like the British Pakistani boxers have more of a connection for the first time because there's that semi-growing influence that's getting there. You Adam Azim's IBO champion, Shabazz Masood IBO world champion. You will have an official world champion hopefully on Saturday. So that is just naturally growing. But I think those that will watch him more and more, I think that influence will grow. But yeah, I would say, just myself anyway, if he did a charity event and it was up north in Birmingham, if it was in Manchester or Blackburn, whatever, I would pay the price of a ticket for a meet and greet because one, it's a charity donation, but two, there's an opportunity there to speak to somebody who is a world champion type of thing. So for me, I'd be so down for that. I think it would be a big miss if charity events, the charity organizers here in the UK didn't do that if he became world champion.
Yeah, well then I hope he does even more because it'd be nice because the British Pakistan is quite a large one, community is quite a large one in this country, and
it's the only sport we're good at. If it's the only sport, we've got foot cricket, but they let us down constantly. Football, I don't ever see a breakthrough if I'm being very honest.
Do you know?
Whereas boxing, no, I don't really see it. It's so difficult, really. Whereas boxing, at its core, it's an individual sport. I can wake up one morning, I'm going to a gym, I'm going to put on gloves, and then I'm just going to train, and then I'll find my own route. I don't need an academy coach like we're cutting you or anything like that, if that makes sense. So the individualism of boxing allows it to happen. And then again, like I said, because there is success, you can then speak to gyms where a certain other fighter's been and be like, can I come and train with you? And there is more open. But yeah, so that's the one thing I will say. I think it's the only sport we're good at as well.
Next time I'm on, I'd be interested to speak or ask the question how many British, not just Muslim, but Asian world champions there have been, because off the top of my head, Prince Naseem, Kid Galahad, obviously Amir Khan, hopefully Hamza. Do you know of many others?
Not that I can think of. Like I said, you got the IBO champions right now, so it's subjective but we would celebrate that. I always say, the IBO can be celebrated to a point. You can't Chris Eubank Jr. it. You can't do that. But as an initial first belt to then understand you will celebrate that because it's a big stepping stone for you.
Particularly when you're talking about a community that hasn't had loads of world champions, it's a fair thing to be like, well, he's taking that next step and the future is really, really bright. It's not this is equivalent to a WBC, but we're just pleased that someone from a similar background to us is achieving his goals, his or her goals. So let's celebrate that achievement and hope there are more to come. I think
literally that.
If it's a different community and they've had 20 world champions, you're like, you're kind of
just there in it. Yeah.
Come on. But yeah, fair.
Oh, that's right. Listen, Ashanti, we've been going for an hour. Whenever you're on, it's not a podcast, it's just a conversation. It's just a conversation about boxing. So I do genuinely appreciate your time. Like I said, guys, listen, this is it. As boxing fans, tell your friends to tell their friends to sit down and just watch it all the way through. It's not late for any of us. So we have that luxury as well. Like the latest it's going to finish is 12 midnight. I'm pretty sure you can all go ahead and watch that. But listen, we're going to wrap up today's episode. Ashanti, appreciate you always for coming on as well. For the first time, we didn't get into an argument. We semi-agreed on a few things. We did.
I blame Ray.
That's what I mean. We could just blame Ray for everything. But guys, listen, like, share, subscribe. Until next time, peace.
It's another band. All the Muslim cars now, whichever get up. Light up my card with a sweet one, please. Someone flips me a bag, baggy. So, it's another one, yeah. It's a full strand, yeah. Oh, it's another one.